If you're questioning everything right now, my response to that is good, because you're awake.
The timeline will be what the timeline is. We can do what we can, and we should, but you can't force the timeline to be what you want it to be.
We're in a season where we're taking new ground. Although there's excitement that comes with that, there's also so much uncertainty.
The doubts that you have are rooted in fear. That's not a voice that I want to listen to and rely on. I feel like it's so funny when we start talking about a topic off camera, we're like sharing some of like our frustrations, or we're like going through it. So we're like, you know, maybe in like a bad mood, or we're in our luteal phase and we're just like, everything sucks. And then by the time we've like talked through for like a little while and then we get to recording, we have much more hope. We have a much more hopeful outlook to share.
Yeah, it's so true. This episode was actually born by the pool last week.
When you were expressing some frustrations, I had just gotten out of my luteal phase, so I was much more like, everything's going to be okay, you know, but like when you're in when you're in that state of mind, it's just like everything's so frustrating, and just kind of, sharing all the frustrations and talking it through. And then now we're here, and I feel like what we've talked through now is like much more hopeful and like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like on the surface, something can look like the most horrible, frustrating thing in the world. But when you actually sit with it and you dig a little bit deeper, you get more context for the ways in which that thing can be working in your favor. And you know, last week at the pool, you're like, how are you doing? Because we don't really get that much time to connect and hang out, even though we see each other several times every week. We work together. We're sisters. Like, we hang out as a family. But especially since my son was born, everything is busy all the time. And I mean, let's be real, everything revolves around little Leo. Mm-hmm. So when you asked that question, I was like, girl, I'm honestly struggling. I'm struggling right now. And what came from that conversation was essentially this summary of just being in a season where I am questioning so much. And you reflected back that you felt similarly. And I got to thinking about a lot of my friends, a lot of acquaintances in the online space, our clients, the conversations that we're having. The reality is that so many of us are in transition. We're in a new season. And something that has been at the forefront of my mind is we're in a season where we're taking new ground. We are working with new soil. And although there's excitement that comes with that, there's also so much uncertainty. And there's also this feeling of loneliness that can come when you're doing something new. And you even mentioned this, I think, by the pool, where when you are taking new ground, you envision being in the forefront and trailblazing a new path. So you're literally the first doing something new. And if not that, you're doing something for the first time for yourself. And that can be in your career, in your family, in your community. And it can feel uncertain. And as human beings, we don't like uncertainty. We don't like not having all of the answers.
Definitely not. I swear I heard someone talking about this recently. I have no idea who. I don't remember where I heard this, but the idea of basically being at the start of something new, or you're at the start of a new season in your life, or you're doing new things and you feel so inexperienced and like not equipped. And it almost feels like you're backtracking in a sense. Like in your mind, you're like, I feel like I'm just a beginner again in some way, shape, or form. Like I feel like I'm just at the start of something. So I feel like a beginner, like a newbie. But although you might be new to the season that you're entering, or although you might be new to something that you're doing, you're not brand new. Like you've had years of experience that has led to this point. And you've got to remember that too. Like, you know, any of the new stuff we're doing, for instance, like we can feel like, oh, we feel like maybe backtracking in a sense. Like you feel like you should be further along, but really like all the seeds you've planted prior to that have helped you grow, and you're not as much of a beginner as you think. Like, you might be a beginner in some sense, but you're not a totally new beginner to it, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have been becoming along the way, and every single day is training, it's reps, it's preparation for where you're going. And I know 100% that every person listening to this can agree that the last 1 to 3 years have held a lot of trials, tribulations, and opposition. Feeling like you are pushing a boulder up a hill blindly.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going. You're going somewhere, but everything has felt harder and heavier. And I don't think that that is coincidence. Opposition comes when you're going somewhere new, when you're on your path, and it's preparation. Opposition truly is preparation. And the last few years have had their fair share of opposition for us, and they felt hard in so many different ways. And although there's been beautiful moments and breakthroughs in different areas, there has been this sense of so many things feel hard. So if you're in that place and you're coming on the other side of that, we see you and you're not alone. I promise you. I've had dozens and dozens of conversations with people. I've observed other people that are even further along than me, decades older than me, or, in the multi-million dollar realm with their business, that are operating at a different level, also in a similar season. So there's something that's happening as a collective where we are being prepared. We've moved through so much opposition, and now we're still in this transitional stage, but we are in the process of taking new ground, working with new soil, taking new territory. And if we're not careful, if we try to plan it to death, we're never going to get to where we need to go. If we try to have all the answers before we move, before we continue moving, we're never going to get to where we want to go. And if we wait to feel clear on everything as a sign, as confirmation that we're on the right path, then we're never going to get where we're meant to go. Because sometimes some answers have to come to you in the process, in the middle of you exercising faith. And that's so much easier said than done. But that's the season that we're in right now.
Yeah. And you just said the word plan, and that just made me think how where I'm at in my life right now, I feel like much more present, and I'm present in the moment that I'm in the season that I'm in, managing the frustrations or doubts, but also being very hopeful about the future. And I'm not planning as much because I'm still planning. I'm always going to be like, where do I want to go? Because you do have to adjust your trajectory sometimes to make sure you land kind of where you're going, where you want to go. So there's something to planning. I'm not saying not to plan at all, but I feel like I just have planned so much less and like really been so much more present in the actual work that I'm doing. And that feels so much more joyful and like peaceful because I'm not trying to set like a crazy expectation. Basically, like sometimes we set expectations that are like we can't really meet, or it won't look that way. We think this certain dream that I have or this goal that I have, I'm going for that thing and it's gonna look how it looks in my mind, but most of the time it doesn't. So I feel like that's what I mean when I say I'm not planning as much. I'm not trying to set unrealistic expectations. I'm just very in the present, working on what I can. And in that, I feel like I'm preparing for a new season and I am being prepared to carry whatever it is that I'm going to carry later on. And yeah, that's kind of where I've been lately. And I don't feel as like stressed lately either. I have moments of doubt and fear that does come up, I think, when you're starting new things or you're trying different strategies or whatever new thing you're doing, or if you're in a new season. Doubts are normal, and I've had those for sure. But something I've come to realize lately is like the doubts that you have are rooted in fear more often than not. And that's not a voice that I want to listen to and rely on. So if the doubts come up, I do have to manage those and I have to sit with those. But then as days go by, I work on like letting those go and being like hopeful about where I'm going. And I just have, even though I've had doubts, I have this weird, beautiful new level of faith and hope because I'm just like, I feel clear about a few things and I'm just going to keep going for those things. I'm going to keep working on those things that I'm clear on. And then it's just going to work out. Like, I don't need to know everything. I think we want to know everything, but there is mystery in that process. And I'm just like learning to be okay with that mystery and actually find beauty in that.
Yeah.
So that's where I've been.
You have to leave room for mystery. And it's an interesting place to be in as a business owner who is a planner. I mean, I'm a planner. If you give me something to do or you give me a problem, my brain starts thinking in like solutions and creating a blueprint and a roadmap to resolve that. And it's one of the reasons why I work so well with our clients. It's a beautiful skill set that I have, but any strength that we have can also be a weakness when it's overextended. And for so many years in my career, I was operating on autopilot and I was planning and I was checking off all of the things. I mean, I had all of my content prepped for like 2 months. I had all of my client work done within hours after our call. I had launches mapped for the entire year. And all of that is beautiful. And sometimes there's a season for that. There's a season where you are so anchored, you have so much clarity, and maybe you do have the bandwidth to plan further ahead. But for me, I'm in a season right now where I truly feel called to surrender, to let go a little bit, to create some breathing room, to not over plan to the point where I am married to consistency for the sake of it, instead of married to the assignment. Because sometimes when we're so focused on being consistent, we're not actually measuring the effectiveness of that. We're so married to, well, I'm just going to be seen. I'm going to be top of mind. I'm going to show up. I'm going to work every day. And that's okay. It's okay. Like, we should put forth effort each day with room for rest, of course. But sometimes that is counterproductive because you are working to feel productive instead of actually being productive and actually working towards the assignment for this season. So something I've been letting go of is this hyper consistency in our content or planning like 6 months ahead. I have loose ideas. I have loose goals, but I'm also not married to my vision of what I think that's going to look like. I'm not married to my expectations of what I think it's going to look like. I know that I have goals and desires that will come forth, but they might not come forth in my timing. They'll come forth in God's timing. And when you finally let go and surrender to that, you trust the process, you trust that in the pursuit, you're becoming who you need to be. And if it takes longer than you expect, that doesn't reflect poorly on you. There's just so much freedom in that. There's so much freedom in that. The process is where you are being prepared. It's truly the most valuable part of life. And it's also the part of life that most of us resist because it's uncomfortable, because it's not where the fruit is, because it's not where we're seeing the harvest, but that's where we're becoming.
Yeah. Lately, I have realized I don't need to be married to the timeline that I want to have, or that, like, the timeline that I want. I feel like in the past, I just had this idea of a certain amount of years out, like life is going to look a certain way. And usually, like I said, your expectations are not, they're not met in the way that you think they will be. So I've just been letting go of that to, like, the timeline will be what the timeline is. And I'm like, we can do what we can and we should. Like, we go to work every day and we're applying ourselves and we're going after the things we believe we need to go after. But I'm just not so married to it needs to be this sort of timeline, because you can't force the timeline to be what you want it to be.
When you're trying to force and accelerate the timeline as well, I think you're creating a lot of unnecessary anxiety and stress for yourself. And that manifests itself in so many different areas of your life. I've been down this rabbit hole with fertility because we're eventually going to want to grow our family. But one of the biggest reasons that people can struggle with infertility, and that's, I'm not diagnosing because I don't have extensive knowledge in this area, but if most everything is operating as it should in your body, you don't have any out of the ordinary issues, one of the things that can stop your fertility process is just your anxiety and what you're focusing on, and the over obsessing and stressing and forcing and pushing and trying to fix every little thing about yourself to make this thing happen in the timing that you want. It literally works against your biology and your body, and it can prevent that. And I think the same is true in your career when you're so married to your vision, your expectation, your timeline. It's all about you again. And we've touched on this in the season too. Like, we are here to do so much more than manifest our own desires. I do believe that there's a beautiful byproducts that come from actualizing our desires, and we're called to do that. But we also need to focus a little bit less on our own self and more on, what am I here to give? How can I be generous? What can I contribute? What can I bring to someone today? How can I go out of my way to serve? And it's funny how when that becomes your posture, when that becomes the focus, the desires that you wanted and the goals that you had, they start to actualize themselves. And you're also less married to them and what they have to say about you. And that's a big one. Because if you're so married to what your goals have to say about you when you actualize them, then you're always going to have to chase the next thing in order to feel good and worthy and valuable. Because you think that your value is connected to your output and connected to how amazing and beautiful your life is. But you're inherently valuable. And I think too, we receive so much gratification, not gratification, what's the word? It's just rewarding, so much more rewarding to give than it is to receive.
Absolutely. I kind of wanted to pivot because I had a thought about, like, you were talking about taking new ground in this new season. And with that, there's this like opposition that you experience. And I just had this question, like, how do you know, maybe you don't, but how do you know when the opposition is like a sign, like this is a red light, like you don't need to go in this direction, like this is a block in your life, you need to go somewhere else, or if that opposition is like healthy and you're on the right track? Like, how do you know? Because I've been sitting with that question recently, because I'm like, sometimes you feel like opposition is maybe like, that's where the doubts come up, and you're like, maybe this opposition is telling me something that I don't need to go in this direction.
That's a great question. And for me, I can't listen to any of my outside circumstances. So I can't look at the opposition and make an assessment as to whether or not that is telling me I should stay on the path or I should get off the path. I look at my spirit. For me, that clarity has to come from the Lord. So if I seek counsel and I am prayerful about that thing, and I feel peace in my spirit, I feel the go ahead in my spirit, it doesn't matter how bad my circumstances look. It doesn't matter if it looks like every odd is stacked against me. I'm going to pursue it because he's given me that green light, because I feel that peace in my spirit. And that's where it's listening to your gut, the Lord, being prayerful and looking at that, not looking at the circumstance, because the circumstance is easily going to misguide you.
Man, that is so good. That's such a good point. I think that's how I've been feeling lately when the doubts come up. I'm just like, I don't dwell on them and I don't let those take root. And I keep coming back to the things that we feel clear on, like things that we've talked about, things that we feel clear on for the business and just in life. But I come back to those things and I'm like, I feel really clear on those. And let's just keep going in that direction. And then if it changes or if we need to pivot and whatever, then we will. But I just have so much more faith because I'm like, we've got some things that we know we need to go in the direction of, some like a breadcrumb trail that we're going down. So I'm like, I feel good about that. So I keep returning to that instead of focusing on the doubts or the fears.
Yeah. The way that we were taught that growing up is red light, green light. Our dad taught us that from a very young age because it's the easiest way to teach a child how to follow their gut and how to hear the voice of God. When you seek the Lord, sometimes you're not going to have an audible answer of exactly what you should do next, but it's really tapping into what you feel in your spirit. Is it a green light? Do you feel peace? Do you feel permission? Do you feel compelled to pursue that thing? You might sometimes feel a yellow light. There might be like a caution. And so that's a moment to pause. And sometimes I will feel that. I don't have a red or a green, I have yellow. And so I pause and I seek that further. And then sometimes it's a red light. It's a clear no. And that works both ways. Sometimes you'll get a green light when your circumstances look awful. Sometimes you'll get a red light when your circumstances look glorious. But just because the circumstances look glorious doesn't mean that that's the pursuit and that's the path for you. Doesn't mean that you're meant to work with that person. It doesn't mean that you're meant to make that money that way. It doesn't mean that this is your path, your calling, your assignment. And that's why you can't trust the circumstance. You can't trust what's outside. You have to listen to your spirit. You have to listen to the Lord. And that's the beautiful thing about seasons like this. You get to exercise that faith and that trust in a way that you never would in a season where you have so much certainty. There's like a dependence and a reliance, a requirement for you to operate in faith because it's your only option. It's all you have. Whereas in a season where you have so much clarity, you don't have to do that in the same way. So see it as an opportunity to exercise that muscle of being faithful, of trusting and moving anyways. Something else I've been reflecting on is that new ground changes you before it changes your circumstances. And man, has that been our story over the last couple of years. It truly has felt like we have been working on ourselves. Like we have been working on ourselves from the inside out and truly becoming what it feels like is different people.
Yeah. It's been so much internal work the last few years that sometimes that can almost feel frustrating because you're like, you have that tension of like, I want to see things on the external. Like, I want to see this take shape or I want to get to this next thing because we have our timelines and we have our hopes and where we want to go. But this sort of process of the internal work is so necessary. The new season that you're entering into requires it of you. Like the new ground you're taking requires it of you. So it's necessary to get to where you're going.
Yeah. I think sometimes we're so focused on where we want to be and we're focused on accelerating the process to get there. And we don't realize that if we got there today, it would be futile and we wouldn't be able to carry that vision well and to steward that well. And it's a well-known concept that life really is about becoming. It's not about actualizing in the mountaintop moments and all the milestones. Like so much of life is truly becoming, and it's going through the mundane Mondays and the activities and stewarding what's in your hands today so that you can become the person you need to be in order to carry your calling and your assignment truly well. I mean, if I look back at myself a decade ago when I started my business, and I thought I was going to create a course, I was going to be a millionaire. I mean, she was cute. She was aspirational. She was going places. But I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for the level of work, for the level of opposition, the responsibility that would accompany that. And we don't like to admit that to ourselves in the moment because we think that we're almighty. We think that we're ready. We're overly ambitious and zealous, and we're ready to do the thing, conquer the thing, accomplish the thing. But in actuality, God knows best. And everything's being orchestrated on our behalf in perfect timing. And there have been truly so many foundational shifts in my perspective on life and business and family that have taken place in the last 2 years that are necessary for where I'm going, that have put my life in order, have put my priorities in order, so that when I get to where I'm going, I truly can sustain that. I truly can carry that well to the point where it will not crush me.
I feel like that's been something that you've talked about so much, and I feel like a lot of people probably have been subconsciously like going through, is the restructuring that's happening in this season. The restructuring of like, what is the top priority? What actually matters to me? And that's so important. Like, it's important to get things in proper order before you get to the next thing, before you get to the next season, because if everything's out of order, girl, that's not going to be good in the long run. Eventually, you're going to hit a wall with that. I think if your life is out of order, let's say, for instance, work is like top of everything. It's the top of the mountain, and then everything else falls under that, like your family and your friends. Eventually, you will hit a wall with that, where like you're going to have to confront that at some point. You're going to have to get that in proper order at some point. And it could take your whole life if you're that stubborn. But eventually you're going to have to restructure and reorder things so that, yeah, so that it's all in proper order. I'm like, why does proper order matter?
I think it matters because the order in which you prioritize things determines whether or not everything fits into the picture well.
Yeah.
And I think, too, you could go to the concept that, like, God has an order for life. And there is a proper order to how things should be prioritized in our life. And if we're going against that, you're never going to be able to truly fit all of the pieces in that are meant to be there because you don't have the capacity. And so for me, you know, I've been in a season of decreasing the priority level of my career in order to increase the priority level of my family. And although being a mom is so demanding, the more that I prioritize that, the more that I focus on effective communication with my husband, honoring my husband, effectively communicating with my child in the walls of my home, the better I can do that with clients, the better I can do that in the marketplace. And my capacity for effective communication, for serving others, expands and grows. Not because I'm practicing it when I'm recording reels and speaking on stages and podcasts, but because I'm practicing it in my everyday in the four walls of my home. So I think that's the ripple effect that can start to happen when things are in proper order. It increases capacity and it builds you up to serve well in every area, not just in one.
Dang, that's beautiful. I think I just really like that idea of the things that you're working on, like in your home and your family, that does have a ripple effect to every other area of your life. So it's almost like, I was thinking about when you're so obsessed over like your career, for instance, you're so obsessed with like it working out and you're almost stressed. You're like stressing yourself out over that. I feel like it's this like thing where when you're so obsessed and you're so stressed about something, you almost like stop it from coming to you, or yes, you repel it away from you because your energy, you're so stressed out. But it's like when you're focusing on your family, for instance, and that's stretching you and growing you in ways that's going to positively affect the business and the work and every other area of your life. So it's actually so important to have your life in proper order. I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that feel doubt imposter syndrome. That's the word or the phrase. A
Mm.
lot of people feel like imposters in their business, whether they're creating content online, they're speaking, they're meeting with a client, or they're just operating behind the scenes in the business. And I'm convinced that one of the reasons why that happens is because we are creating a dynamic where we are an imposter. Because when we're in our home with our family, at the grocery store, we are not carrying ourselves the way we would as if we were speaking on a podcast or speaking on a stage with that level of intention, care, concern, planning, preparation. But what if we started conducting ourselves in the way that we do in our business, in our home? What if we start conducting ourselves in the way that we would in a sales call in our home? So, as an example, on a sales call, you might feel like an imposter. You might feel really nervous because you feel like you're being fake or you're being inauthentic. And maybe that's because you are, because you're stressing about communicating a certain way and pleasing that person, when if you would just make yourself available to serve and to communicate effectively and to be patient and kind and curious, then that's an effective sales process. Those are characteristics that we can exhibit at home, with our children, with our families. When we go out and we run errands, we can actually pause and get off of our phone and look people in the eye, look at their name tag, address them by name, go out of our way to give food to someone that's in need on the street. I think that now more than ever, we are starting to look at life through a more holistic lens, where we are not so hyper obsessive over our career and how we're perceived and how we're showing up there, but we actually want to feel fulfilled when we're not on a stage, when we're not online. We actually want to feel fulfilled every single day, in every single moment. And that's part of the work that we've been doing when it comes to just putting things in proper order in your life and prioritizing things more appropriately in the way that they're meant to be prioritized, and not putting business and entrepreneurship on this pedestal where it is like coveted and idolized. And it's like, this says everything about me. Actually, my business says so much less about me than how I carry myself when my kid is having a tantrum. And how am I patient in that moment? How can I communicate effectively in that moment? How can I carry myself the same way I would if I had an audience of 1,000? Truly doing this work behind the scenes, like truly in the secret place to become the best version of ourselves so that that can translate over into our career.
I feel like so many people might be going through this process right now of detaching themselves from their business and like detaching their identity and their worth from their business, or just feeling like maybe life is so much more than just my business. And so they are kind of having these questions of like, who am I? Or like, what do I actually want to do? And how do I want to show up in the world? And how do I want to give and be of service? Whereas in years prior, I feel like so many of us got really attached to our businesses and whatever it was that we were creating or doing, we're just like so wrapped up in that. But now I feel like there's just this like detachment happening, and so many people are kind of waking up to like life is about so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And reorienting, reorganizing, restructuring. And I feel like that's going to make for such a beautiful future. But right now it might feel so like you're questioning everything of like, what am I actually doing? And this doesn't even feel good to me anymore. And like, this isn't fulfilling and this isn't working. And so there is this general like questioning happening. But something you were talking about earlier is like the questioning doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be so doubtful. It can actually be curiosity. You can be more curious about, where am I going in this new season? And it can be a good thing, not like you're overanalyzing and freaking out, but like you're just curious about, where am I going? What is this new ground I'm trying to take? And And what does this mean for me in my life?
Yeah.
And curiosity is so much more, it's just such a different energy than doubt and fear. Curiosity is so much more like, it's like playful in a sense, and it's more like fun and lighthearted. It doesn't feel so heavy.
It's true. If you're questioning everything right now, my response to that is good, because you're awake. You're observing, you're here, you're beholding. Like, for years, too many of us have been on autopilot. And we've just been pursuing the thing, and it's about our vision, and we're going to manifest what we desire. We're going to make all this money, and we're going to have jet planes, and we're going to travel, and we're going to do this and this and this for ourselves, and then we're going to be rich. And now all of that's been disrupted, and we are awake, and we are realizing that's not what it's about. That doesn't feel good anymore. Why doesn't it feel good anymore? So good, ask the questions, pursue the questions, not from a posture of, oh gosh, am I doing the right thing? I'm anxious about this. What does this have to say about me? No, from a posture of childlike intrigue and faith and exploration. Ooh, what is this new path? Ooh, this was highlighted to me. What could that mean? Whoa, I'm facing a lot of opposition. What does that mean is coming? What is ahead that is so big and so good that I'm being met with this kind of opposition? That gets me excited. Literally speaking hope and excitement over the process instead of worry and anxiety and doubt.
Yeah. We can't be anxious about the unknown. We need to be curious about the known. And right now, I feel like that's where I'm at with like pivots and changes that we've made in the business. I am like, I know very little about where we're going, but I am interested in that. That's all I can do. I can only be interested in what I know. And then the unknown is just like the mystery, and I don't know all of that yet. And I won't know until later when it reveals itself to me and in retrospect. But all you can do is be curious about what you know right now. And maybe that's only one thing. Maybe that's only 1 to 3 small things, but you've just got to keep pursuing those things. You can't worry about the unknown. It's not fruitful or helpful for you or anyone else.
The posture is palms up, chin up, eyes open, move forward, take the best next step, follow the highlights. You don't have to know everything. You're allowed to question everything, pursue the new thing. Don't stay where you've been. In order to get to new territory, you have to leave familiar territory. You have to literally, willingly put yourself in a place where you don't know certain things. You don't know where you're going. But that's the only way you're going to get to where you're meant to be and where you're going, where you're being called to. So that's my recommendation, is follow the highlights. Like you said, follow the things that you know, and everything else will be sorted out. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know everything in order to get there. You just have to have clarity on the few things in front of you and be willing to pursue them. That's it.
Yeah. And like hold the line and have faith and just keep going in the direction of the things that you know. And when doubts come up, just be like, no, thank you. I'm going to actually choose hope in this moment, and that like this is going to work out. Yeah. And that's it. I don't think that's delusion. I don't think that's like me being delusional, like, oh, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. No, like I just know in my bones, everything's going to work out. And so I'm just not as worried. I have moments where I get worried or where I get anxious, but then I just, skirt that away. I'm like, get away from me. I'm going to be hopeful, and I'm going to choose to have faith in the unseen and just keep moving in the direction I know I need to go in, and it'll all work out. Yeah. Thank God that it will. I know that it will. So I'm just going to say that for whoever's listening too, like everything's going to work out for you. Yeah. It will at some point. It will in some way. So yeah, you just got to surrender the timeline and
yeah.
You're
here, you're awake, you're breathing, you're on the path, you're doing the thing, stay in pursuit, stay committed. It's all working in your favor in perfect timing. We truly believe that. We're contending with you for that. We're all in this together. So I hope you enjoyed this one. This was a fun one.
Yeah.
We'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye. We're all in this together. I don't know how it's We're all in this together. I don't know the words either. I can't remember them. Oh my god.